My parents gave my inheritance to my sister behind my back. I always knew my parents had a favorite, but I never realized they would actually go this far until last Tuesday. My sister Chloe has always been the one they protected while I was the one they expected things from. When I got into state school on a scholarship, they clapped and said, "Good job." But when Chloe barely graduated high school, they threw her a $3,000 party and bought her a car because she worked so hard under stress. I never complained because I figured that was just their way of balancing things out since I was doing well on my own. Fast forward 10 years and I have worked my way up to a senior manager position at a tech firm while Chloe is 32 and still living in our parents' basement. She has had about 12 different jobs in the last 5 years and usually quits because she says the manager was mean to her or the vibe was off. My parents have been paying her phone bill and insurance since forever, and they always tell me how lucky I am that I don't struggle like she does. About 3 years ago, my grandfather passed away and left a significant amount of money in a trust for me and Chloe. It was roughly $200,000 each, meant to be used for a down payment on a house or for starting a business. My parents were the executors of the estate because my grandfather trusted them to handle the logistics. I didn't need the money right away since I was saving up for a house in a specific neighborhood, so I told my parents to keep it in the high-yield account they set up. Last month, I finally found the perfect house. It was a 1940s Craftsman with a huge backyard, and it was exactly what I wanted. I put in an offer and it was accepted, which was a miracle in this market. I called my dad to tell him the good news and asked him to start the process of transferring my inheritance so I could make the down payment by the end of the month. There was this long silence on the phone that lasted so long I thought the call had dropped. When my dad finally spoke, his voice sounded weirdly high and tight. He said we should all have dinner on Sunday to discuss it. I told him there was nothing to discuss and I just needed the wire transfer, but he insisted. I showed up to their house on Sunday and the atmosphere was like a funeral. My mom wouldn't look at me and Chloe was sitting on the couch scrolling on her phone like nothing was happening. We sat down at the table and my dad cleared his throat about 50 times. He finally told me that the money was gone. I laughed because I thought he was joking, or maybe that they had invested it and the market took a dip. But then he explained that they had given my entire share to Chloe over the last 2 years. Apparently Chloe had gotten into some credit card debt and then she wanted to start a candle business that failed, and then she needed a new car because she crashed the one they bought her. My mom chimed in saying that I already have a great career and a nice apartment while Chloe has nothing. She said they were just being fair by giving the person who needed it more the extra help. I asked them how they could possibly think stealing $200,000 from me to fund Chloe's mistakes was fair. My dad actually got angry and said it wasn't stealing because it was family money and they were just managing it the way my grandfather would have wanted. I stood up and told them that they had exactly 48 hours to put that money back or I was going to a lawyer. Chloe finally looked up from her phone and called me selfish. She said I was already rich and I was trying to make her homeless just because I wanted a bigger house. My parents both started crying and saying I was tearing the family apart over paper. I left without saying another word and drove straight to my apartment. I didn't wait 48 hours. I knew they didn't have the money because my dad is retired and my mom only works part-time at a library. I called a lawyer Monday morning and filed a suit against them for breach of fiduciary duty. My phone has been ringing non-stop for 3 days with calls from my aunts and cousins telling me how heartless I am for suing my own parents. My mom sent me a long text saying she never thought she raised a son who would value money over his own blood. Yesterday, the lawyer served them the papers. My dad called me screaming that he was going to have to sell their house to pay me back and that they would be on the street because of me. I told him that maybe he should ask Chloe for a place to stay since she has $200,000 worth of candles and bad decisions. I have officially blocked all of them and I am moving forward with the lawsuit because family or not, you don't get to erase my future to cover up your failures. I found out this morning that Chloe used the last of the cash to book a trip to Bali so she could find herself after all the family drama. My lawyer says the house sale is pretty much guaranteed now. The silence in my apartment that night was heavy. I sat on my balcony looking out at the city lights, nursing a glass of bourbon that tasted like ash. For years, I had played the role of the reliable son. I was the one who never missed a birthday, the one who handled the paperwork when Grandpa died, and the one who quietly bailed Chloe out of smaller jams so my parents wouldn't have to worry. I did it because I thought that's what a family was, a network of support where everyone does their part. But sitting there, staring at the digital copy of the lawsuit on my laptop, I realized I was the only one playing by those rules. To my parents, I wasn't a son, I was a safety net. And to Chloe, I was just a bank account she hadn't managed to drain yet. Tuesday morning, the reality of the situation really started to sink in. I had to call my real estate agent and tell her that the down payment was delayed. The embarrassment of that call was a sharp, stinging needle. I've spent my entire adult life being the guy who has it all together, and here I was, sounding like a deadbeat because my own parents had fleeced me. "Is there a problem with the financing, David?" she asked, her voice professional but tinged with that subtle, "I've heard this before," skepticism. "Just a logistical issue with a trust transfer." I lied. My face was burning. "I'll have it sorted by the end of the week." I hung up and stared at the wall. Sorting it by the end of the week was a pipe dream. The legal system doesn't move that fast, and my parents didn't have the liquid cash to make me whole. I knew what filing that suit meant. I knew it meant the house I grew up in, the one with the height markers carved into the pantry door, and the scent of my mom's cinnamon rolls would likely have a "for sale" sign in the front yard within months. The guilt tried to claw its way up my throat, but then I thought about that Craftsman house. I thought about the years I spent working 60-hour weeks, skipping vacations, and eating ramen in my early 20s so I could build a life. Grandpa saw that. He knew Chloe was a disaster, which is why he specifically set up a trust instead of just giving the money to my parents to distribute. He wanted to ensure I had a foundation. My parents didn't just steal money, they stole his final wish. By Wednesday afternoon, the family pressure reached a fever pitch. My Aunt Sarah, who I used to be close with, called me 3 times in an hour. When I finally picked up, she didn't even say hello. "David, have you lost your mind?" she hissed. "Your mother is a wreck. She's been crying for 2 days straight. You're going to leave them homeless? Over a house you don't even need yet. You have a career, David. You have so much." "I have what I worked for, Sarah," I said, keeping my voice level despite the tremor in my hands. "The money Grandpa left me was mine. It wasn't a suggestion. It was a legal obligation. They took it without asking and gave it to a woman who just spent the last of it on a flight to Indonesia." "She's your sister. She's struggling. She's 32, I shouted, finally losing my cool. "She's not a child. She's a grown woman who has been subsidized by everyone around her since she was 16. When does it stop? Does it stop when I'm 50 and she's still finding herself on my dime? Does it stop when my parents are dead and I'm expected to let her live in my guest room for the rest of her life?" Sarah went quiet for a moment. "It's just money, David. Blood is more important." "If blood was so important, they wouldn't have bled me dry the second I turned my back," I said and hung up. I spent Thursday meeting with my lawyer, Marcus. He's a shark, the kind of guy who wears 3-piece suits even in 90-degree weather. He laid out the grim reality of the situation. Because my parents were executors and had blatantly disregarded the terms of the trust, the case was open and shut. "We can put a lien on the house immediately," Marcus explained, tapping a pen against a thick stack of bank statements he'd subpoenaed. "But David, you need to understand something. Once we do this, there's no going back. Their credit will be ruined. They'll lose their primary asset. Are you prepared for the fallout?" "I'm prepared for the truth," I told him. "I want what's mine." As I walked out of his office, I saw a notification on Instagram. I usually don't check it, but I saw Chloe's handle. She had posted a photo of a sunset over a beach in Uluwatu. The caption read, "Leaving the toxicity behind. Healing is a journey, and sometimes you have to lose everything to find who you really are. Number Bali life, number new beginnings, number family drama." I felt a cold, hard knot form in my stomach. She hadn't lost anything. She was sipping a cocktail on a beach while our parents were facing a forced sale of their home. The level of delusion was staggering. She truly believed she was the victim in this scenario. That evening, my dad called. He didn't scream this time. He sounded old, tired. "David," he said, his voice cracking, "please, we can work out a payment plan. I can give you $500 a month for my pension." "Dad, at $500 a month, it would take 33 years to pay me back. You'll be over 100 years old. You know that's not a solution." "We just wanted her to have a chance, son," he whispered. "You were always so strong. We didn't think you'd mind helping her." "You didn't ask me to help her," I reminded him, my heart aching but my resolve firming. "You took from me. You treated my future like it was an inconvenience compared to her whims. You didn't give her a chance. You gave her a free ride that crashed into a wall, and now you're asking me to pay for the repairs. Your mother won't survive losing this house," he said. "Then you should have thought about that before you treated the trust like a personal piggy bank," I replied. "Tell Chloe to come home from Bali. Tell her to sell the car. Tell her to get a job at the grocery store. Maybe if she starts contributing, you can save the house." "She can't," he said, and I could hear the defeat in his voice. She says she needs this time for her mental health." I hung up. There was nothing left to say. The next few weeks were a blur of legal filings and cold stares from anyone in the family who still dared to speak to me. I lost the Craftsman house. The seller couldn't wait for the litigation to play out, and it went to a cash buyer within 48 hours of my offer falling through. That hurt more than I expected. It was a tangible symbol of the life I was supposed to be starting, gone because of the people who were supposed to protect it. But something else happened too. For the first time in my life, I stopped feeling responsible for everyone else's happiness. The weight of being the good son had been a heavy cloak I didn't even know I was wearing. By filing that suit, I had finally set a boundary that couldn't be ignored. I moved into a smaller, modern apartment closer to work. It's sterile compared to the Craftsman, but it's mine. I changed my number and only gave it to a few trusted friends. The last I heard, the house sale is going through. My parents are moving into a small 2-bedroom rental on the outskirts of town. Chloe? She's back from Bali. She tried to move into my parents' new rental, but for the first time, my dad said no. Apparently, seeing the for sale sign on his own lawn finally woke him up. He told her she had to find her own way. She's currently staying on a friend's couch, posting about how adversity builds character. I still have the bank statements. I still have the memories of that dinner where they admitted they'd stolen from me. And I still have the lawsuit. I'm not dropping it. Every cent they get from that house sale is going into an account in my name. People say you can't put a price on family. I used to believe that. But it turns out my family put a price on me $200,000. I'm just making sure they pay the bill. I'm standing on my own now, and for the first time, the view is actually pretty clear. The first few months of living in my new apartment felt like a long, cold exhale. The legal process was a slow-motion car crash, inevitable and messy. Every time a new document arrived from Marcus, it felt like another layer of my childhood was being stripped away. The discovery phase of the lawsuit was particularly brutal. Seeing the bank statements laid out in black and white, seeing $50,000 moved on a random Tuesday in October just so Chloe could pivot to a lifestyle blog, it turned my stomach. I'm not a vengeful person by nature, but there is a specific kind of coldness that settles in your chest when you realize your parents viewed your hard work as a communal resource for their favorite child's failures. In December, the house finally sold. My parents' old place, the one with the crooked porch step and the oak tree I used to climb, was gone for $600,000. After the mortgage was cleared and the legal fees were sliced off, there was enough to cover exactly what they owed me, plus interest. I remember the day the funds hit my account. I sat at my desk at the firm, staring at the balance on my screen. It was the exact amount I should have had a year ago. I didn't feel like celebrating. I didn't feel like I had won. I just felt like the debt of my childhood had finally been settled. Then came the phone call from my mother. I hadn't spoken to her in 6 months. I had her blocked, but she called from a burner or a friend's phone. I picked up, thinking it was a client. David? Her voice was thin, like paper that had been folded too many times. We're moving today, into the apartment. I didn't say anything. I just listened to the sound of her breathing. Your father's back is acting up again, she continued, as if we were just catching up. We couldn't take the dining room table. It wouldn't fit. I had to leave it on the curb. Do you remember that table, David? Your grandfather bought that for us when you were born. I remember, Mom, I said. My voice was like stone. We have nothing left, she whispered, and then she started to cry. It wasn't the dramatic, loud sobbing she used to do to get her way. It was a quiet, broken sound. I hope you're happy with your money. I hope it keeps you warm at night. It's not about being happy, Mom, I said. It's about the fact that I can't trust you. You didn't just lose a table today. You lost a son a long time ago. You just didn't notice because you were too busy looking at Chloe. I hung up before she could respond. I had to go into a meeting 5 minutes later and discuss a multi-million-dollar software rollout. I sat in that glass-walled conference room wearing a tailored suit, looking every bit the rich son they thought I was, while my insides felt like they were being hollowed out with an ice cream scoop. Chloe, of course, couldn't handle the lack of attention. Now that the bank of Mom and Dad was closed, she tried a new tactic, the public shaming. She started a series on social media about financial abuse within the family unit. She didn't name me directly, but everyone in our circle knew who she was talking about. She painted herself as the struggling artist being bullied by a corporate shark brother who used the law to evict his own parents. A few of my cousins sent me links to her videos. In one, she was crying in front of a ring light, talking about how she had to sell her designer handbags just to buy groceries. She's literally wearing a $400 sweater in that video, I told my cousin Mike over the phone. Mike was the only one who had stayed neutral. I know, Dave, Mike sighed, but you know how she is. She believes her own lies. The rest of the family is starting to see it, though. Aunt Sarah asked her why she didn't just get a job at the Starbucks down the street, and Chloe told her she was too overqualified for entry-level work, but too traumatized for management. Unbelievable, I muttered. Your dad is working at a hardware store, Dave, Mike said softly. He's 70. He's been doing 3 shifts a week just to cover the rent on their new place. That hit me harder than I wanted to admit. My dad, the man who taught me how to throw a baseball and how to check my oil, was wearing a red vest and helping people find the right size screws at 70 years old. A part of me wanted to drive over there, hand him a check, and tell him to go home and rest. But then I remembered the long silence on the phone. I remembered him telling me it wasn't stealing because it was family money. I remembered that they had watched me struggle to save every penny for years while they secretly drained my future to pay for. Chloe's luxury candles and Bali flights. I'm a firm believer that you have to let people face the consequences of their actions or they'll never learn. If I bailed him out now, I would just be repeating the cycle. I would be the new enabler, and Chloe would find a way to get that money from him within a week. About a month ago, I finally bought a house. It's not the 1940s Craftsman. It's a modern townhouse with big windows and a rooftop deck. It's clean, it's new, and it has no history. No height markers on the pantry doors. No ghosts of Christmas dinners where I felt like the second best child. I moved in on a Saturday. I didn't hire movers. I did it myself, box by box. It was a workout, and by the time the sun went down, my muscles were screaming. I sat on the floor of my new living room, surrounded by cardboard, and realized I didn't have a single photo of my family to put on the mantle. My phone buzzed. It was a text from a number I didn't recognize. David, it's Chloe. I'm at a shelter. They won't let me stay here another night because I got into an argument with the staff. Mom and Dad won't pick up the phone. I'm scared. Please, just one night on your couch? I'll do anything. I looked at the message for a long time. I looked at my beautiful, empty, quiet house. I thought about the $200,000. I thought about the Bali sunset photos. I didn't reply. I didn't block her either. I just deleted the thread. I'm done being the safety net. I'm done being the strong one who carries everyone else's luggage while they walk light. If the family is torn apart, it wasn't the lawsuit that did it. The lawsuit was just the autopsy. The family died the moment they decided that my life was worth less than my sister's whims. Tonight, I'm going to order a pizza, sit on my rooftop, and watch the city. It's a lonely view, but for the first time in my life, I don't owe anybody a damn thing. I'm finally home. The first holiday season was the hardest. In the corporate world, December is a sprint end-of-year reviews, budget planning, and the frantic push to close deals. I buried myself in it. I worked until my eyes burned from the blue light of my monitors, hoping that if I stayed busy enough, I could skip the part where I felt like an orphan. But you can't outrun the calendar. 3 days before Christmas, a package arrived at my new office. It was a small, battered, cardboard box, taped shut with too much packing tape. No return address, just my name and my mother's shaky, elegant cursive. I opened it at my desk. Inside was a single ornament, a ceramic star I'd painted in kindergarten with David, written on the back in fading glitter. There was no note. There didn't need to be. It was a tactical strike, a reminder of a childhood that now felt like a fever dream. I put the star in my desk drawer and didn't look at it again. On Christmas Eve, the silence in my townhouse was absolute. I'd bought a small tree, the kind that comes pre-lit so you don't have to struggle with the wires, but I hadn't even bothered to take it out of the box. I was sitting on my sofa with a glass of expensive scotch, watching the snow start to coat the rooftop deck when my phone buzzed. It was an email from an unknown address. The subject line was, "Final realization." It was from my dad. "Is greater than David. I saw you in the city yesterday. You didn't see me. I was getting off the bus near your office. You looked successful. You looked like the man I always knew you'd become. Is greater than I'm writing this because your mother doesn't know. She's still angry. She's still convinced you're the villain. But sitting in this apartment, listening to Chloe complain that the heater makes too much noise, I finally looked at the bank records myself, not the ones the lawyer sent, but the ones I'd hidden in the back of the file cabinet. Is greater than I saw the dates, David. I saw how many times we took from your account when Chloe didn't even have an emergency. We took $10,000 for her wellness retreat while you were working overtime to make senior manager. We took $5,000 for her car repairs that were actually just shopping sprees. Is greater than I failed you. I let my fear of Chloe's instability turn me into a thief. I let my love for one child become a weapon against the other. You were right to sue us. If you hadn't, I would have kept doing it until you had nothing left, all to fill a hole in Chloe that can't be filled. Is greater than I don't expect you to call. I don't expect to be invited to your new home. I just wanted you to know that one of us finally sees the truth. You aren't heartless, son. You're just the only one of us who grew up. I read that email 4 times. I wanted to cry, but the tears wouldn't come. Instead, I felt a strange, cold clarity. Validation is a powerful thing, but it doesn't fix the wreckage. It doesn't put the furniture back in the house or bring Grandpa back to tell me he's proud of me. The next morning, Christmas Day, I did something I never thought I'd do. I drove to the hardware store where my dad worked. It was closed for the holiday, obviously, but I sat in the parking lot for a long time, looking at the building. I thought about him in that red vest, lifting heavy bags of mulch at 70 years old. I realized then that I didn't hate him anymore. I just couldn't be near him. Our relationship was a bridge that had been burned so badly that even the foundations were charred. You can forgive someone and still never want to have dinner with them again. I drove back to my townhouse and finally unpacked the tree. I set it up by the window, plugged it in, and took the ceramic star out of my pocket. I hung it right at the top. Later that evening, the extended family group chat erupted. Apparently, Chloe had tried to borrow Aunt Sarah's car to go see a guy she'd met on an app, and Sarah had finally snapped. She posted a long, blistering message about how David was right all along and that Chloe was a black hole of need. I watched the messages fly by the shock, the defense from my mother, the quiet agreement from my cousins. The tide was turning. People were finally seeing the Chloe I'd lived with for years. I didn't chime in. I didn't like any of the comments. I just exited the group chat. I deleted the app. My life is quiet now. My career is thriving, and the money from the settlement is tucked away in a diversified portfolio, growing steadily. Sometimes I walk past a 1940s craftsman house and feel a pang of what could have been, but then I look at my own keys and remember that I bought this life with my own strength. Family isn't always about who you share blood with. It's about who shows up. It's about who respects your boundaries and values your soul. My parents chose Chloe's chaos over my stability, and in doing so, they lost the one person who would have actually taken care of them in their old age. I'm 34 years old, and I'm starting over. It's a late start, but for the first time, I'm not carrying anyone else's weight on my shoulders. I am free. And in the end, that was worth every cent of the $200,000. The snow is coming down harder now, blurring the edges of the world. I think I'll make some coffee, open a book, and enjoy the most precious thing I own, a home where nobody can take anything from me ever again. I didn't stay in the house that Christmas night. The silence of the townhouse, while peaceful, started to feel like a vacuum, sucking the air out of my lungs. I grabbed my coat and drove. I didn't have a destination until I found myself pulling into the gravel lot of a dive bar 3 towns over a place where nobody knew my name. My career success, or the fact that I'd effectively orphaned myself for a bank transfer. The bar smelled of stale hops and cheap pine cleaner. I sat in a corner booth, the vinyl cracked under my weight, and watched a group of guys my age laughing over a round of pitchers. They looked unburdened. I wondered if any of them had a Chloe in their lives, or if their parents actually looked them in the eye when they spoke. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A LinkedIn notification. It was a message from a former colleague of Chloe's, one of the few who hadn't blocked her yet. Hey David, I don't want to overstep, but Chloe is posting some pretty dark stuff on her private story. Mentions of ending the cycle and how the world is better off without her. Just thought someone in the family should know. My heart didn't race. It didn't even skip a beat. I felt a cold, clinical detachment. I knew this play. This was the ultimate trump card. When the money runs out, when the guilt tripping fails, and when the public shaming backfires, Chloe always reached for the nuclear option. She'd done it at 19 when she failed out of community college, and again at 25 when her first fiancé realized she was spending his rent money on designer shoes. I took a sip of my drink and typed a reply. Call the police for a wellness check. I am no longer her emergency contact. I put the phone face down on the table. 10 minutes later, my mother started calling, then my dad. I didn't answer. If it was real, the professionals would handle it. If it was a performance, I wasn't going to be the audience. By New Year's, the dust had settled into a grim new reality. Chloe hadn't done anything. She just checked herself into a high-end, holistic retreat for a weekend, which my mother had apparently paid for by selling her engagement ring. The revelation of that hit me like a physical blow. My mother had sold the one thing she truly cherished to fund another 48 hours of Chloe's delusions. I realized then that my parents weren't just victims of Chloe. They were addicts. They were addicted to the feeling of being needed, addicted to the drama of saving her, and I was the drug they'd sold to get their fix. In February, I finally got the official notice that the trust had been replenished and the legal case was closed. Marcus called me to congratulate me. You're a rare breed, David, he said, his voice crackling over the Bluetooth in my car. Most people fold. They let the guilt eat them alive, and they let their families walk all over them until there's nothing left but resentment. You actually stood up. I don't feel like a hero, Marcus, I said, looking at the rain slicking the pavement. You aren't a hero. You're a survivor. There's a difference. I started seeing a therapist in March, a guy named Dr. Aris, who specialized in family trauma. In our 3rd session, he asked me a question that changed everything. David, he said, leaning back in his chair, if you could go back to that Sunday dinner and they told you the money was gone, but instead of getting angry, they had sincerely apologized and asked for your help to fix it, what would you have done? I thought about it. I thought about the smell of my mom's roast chicken and the way my dad used to clap me on the shoulder. I would have given it to them, I whispered. I would have let it go. All of it. Exactly, Aris said. It was never about the $200,000. It was about the betrayal betrayal of the contract. Not the legal one, the emotional one. The one where they were supposed to be your parents, not Chloe's accomplices. That was the turning point. I stopped checking the group chats. I stopped looking at Chloe's social media through burner accounts. I even stopped reading the occasional "I miss you" texts from my mom that were always followed by a "we're struggling with the electric bill." I started living. I took a trip to Japan in April, just me and a backpack. I spent 2 weeks walking through Kyoto, eating at tiny ramen stalls, and sitting in zen gardens where the only sound was the wind through the bamboo. I didn't think about the lawsuit once. I didn't think about the hardware store or the Bali flights. I just felt the weight of my own feet on the earth. When I came back, I found a letter in my mailbox. It wasn't from my parents. It was from the executor of my grandfather's estate, a lawyer who had been a close friend of his. Inside was a small handwritten note from my grandpa that had been tucked away in a safe deposit box to be delivered only after the trust was fully settled. Is greater than David. If you're reading this, it means you've had to deal with your parents and your sister. I'm sorry I left that mess on your doorstep. I knew who they were, and I knew what they would try to do. I set up the trust the way I did because I knew you were the only one strong enough to hold the line. Is greater than money is just paper, but integrity is iron. Don't let them soften you. Build your life. Find a woman who knows your worth, and start a family that doesn't trade its members like currency. I'm proud of you, kid. I always was. I sat on my stairs and finally, truly cried. Not for the money, or the house, or the lost years. I cried because someone had seen me. Someone had known I was the one carrying the weight, and they had loved me for it. Today, life is different. I'm dating a woman named Elena. She's an architect, sharp and kind, and when I told her the story of my family, she didn't call me heartless. She just took my hand and said, "I'm glad you made it out. I haven't seen my parents in over a year." I heard Chloe moved to another state to start over with some guy she met online, leaving my parents in that small apartment with nothing but the echoes of her demands. Part of me still feels a twinge of sadness for them, but it's distant, like a storm happening in another county. I'm building my own table now, one where everyone is welcome, as long as they bring honesty to the meal. My future isn't a debt to be paid. It's a story I'm finally allowed to write for myself. The Craftsman house is gone, but the man who was going to live in it is finally here, and he's doing just fine. The years have a way of filing down the sharp edges of a grudge until it looks less like a weapon and more like a boundary. By the time I hit 36, the Great Inheritance War, as my cousin Mike jokingly called it, had become a chapter in a book I rarely pulled off the shelf. I was sitting in my backyard, not the one with the 1940s Craftsman, but a modern, minimalist patio I designed with Elena when the final piece of the puzzle drifted into my life. It was a Tuesday, exactly 4 years since that dinner where my world fractured. A man I didn't recognize was standing at my gate. He looked like he'd spent his life outdoors. His skin was weathered, and he held a heavy manila envelope like it was a burden. "You, David?" he asked. "I am. Can I help you?" "I'm Arthur. I was your grandfather's neighbor at the lake house for 20 years. He told me if I ever heard that the trust was fully settled and the dust had cleared, I should bring this to you personally, not through the lawyers, not through the mail." He handed me the envelope. It was thick. Inside wasn't money, it was a collection of journals, my grandfather's private thoughts from the last decade of his life. I spent the next 3 nights reading them. It was like hearing his voice from the grave, but without the filter of his stern patriarch persona. He wrote extensively about my parents. He'd seen the pattern long before I did. He saw how my mother used guilt as a currency, and how my father, out of a desperate need for peace at any price, let her spend my future to buy it. One entry, dated 6 months before he passed, hit me like a physical blow. "Is greater than. Watch David today helping me fix the dock. He's the only one in this family who understands that things only stay standing if you put in the work to maintain them. His father has checked out. His sister is a ghost who only appears when she's hungry. I'm leaving the money to the kids, but I know Sarah and Robert will try to redistribute it. They call it love. I call it theft. I've put enough legal barbs in that trust to make sure David has the tools to fight back. I hope he has the stomach for it. If he doesn't, they'll drown him right along with Chloe." Reading those words, the last lingering shards of guilt I carried, the "what if I was too harsh" thoughts evaporated. He hadn't just left me money, he'd left me a test of character. He knew that for me to truly be my own man, I had to stop being their son first. In June, I got a call from a hospital in a city 2 states over. Chloe. She'd been involved in a high-speed chase, not as the driver, but as a passenger, in a car filled with things that didn't belong to her or the guy behind the wheel. She was stable, but she was facing felony charges. My parents couldn't afford a lawyer this time. They'd already liquidated everything to pay me back and keep their own heads above water. My mother called me, her voice a ghost of the woman who used to command our dinner table. "David, please," she whispered. "She's your sister. She's facing 5 years. If you could just lend us the money for a private attorney. We'll sign anything. We'll give you a lien on our cars, anything." "Mom," I said, and for the first time, I didn't feel anger. I just felt a profound, weary pity. "You don't have anything left to give me, and I don't have anything left to give her. The $200,000 was her get-out-of-jail-free card. She spent it in Bali and on lifestyle blogs. This is the bill coming due. You're going to let her go to prison?" "No, Mom," I said firmly. "She put herself there. I'm just staying out of the way of the consequences. If I pay for a lawyer now, what happens in 5 years? What happens when you're 80 and she's in trouble again? You have to stop, for your own sake." I hung up and went back to my life. 2 months later, Elena and I got married. It was a small ceremony at a vineyard. No big family table. No aunts whispering in the corners. Mike was there, and a few close friends who had seen me through the darkest nights of the lawsuit. My dad sent a card with $20 inside a heartbreaking gesture from a man who was probably skipping meals to afford the stamp. I kept the card. I didn't keep the money. I donated it to a charity that helps seniors with legal advocacy. Today, I'm looking at a son of my own. He's 6 months old, sleeping in a crib that I built with my own hands. I look at him, and I realize that the cycle ends here. He will never be a safety net. He will never be told his success is a communal pot for someone else's laziness. I will love him for who he is, not for what he can provide or how much of a burden he isn't. Chloe is serving a reduced sentence. My parents are still in that small apartment. I send them a grocery gift card every month anonymously through a third-party service so they don't go hungry. It's the only tie I have left. I don't want their thanks, and I certainly don't want their apologies. I realize that the family blood everyone kept talking about isn't a bond, it's just biology. Real family is built on respect, and respect can't be stolen or redistributed. It has to be earned. I'm finally at peace with the man in the mirror. He's a bit harder than he used to be, and he's got a few more gray hairs, but his hands are clean. And in this world, that's worth more than any inheritance.